Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a fun new technique using distress oxide spray. I started out with a piece of white cardstock and I'm going to make a 10 by 20 centimeters tag out of it. Now that the tag is ready, I'm going to give it a base of black gesso. While you watch me give the tag the base of black gesso, I'm going to talk to you about this technique. I found it out while I was demoing and using my scraps, and when I found out about it, I was very frustrated that I wasn't filming it. So I thought that I would try to replicate it on another tag, making it similar. Although you see while I'm working on the background that I've had quite of a hard time replicating the technique, but I'm going to explain to you why I think this time it didn't work, as well as I'm going to show you the other tag I made and how the technique actually looks. And now you just saw me apply the Distress Oxide Spray in Antique Linen. I absolutely love this color, and that's what I used on my other tag as well. I just sprayed a little bit on the background when it was dry and added some water. I also added a little bit more of the oxide spray and more water, and I'm drying it out again because I felt like there wasn't enough in that area. The next passage is completely optional, but I wanted to give my background more interest, so I'm adding Distress Spray Stain in Walnut Stain. And this is how the tag looks dry after I've added some splatters with the oxide. Now onto the technique which this video is all about. First thing I'm going to grab is my black ink pad. And then I got out some stamps, the same that I used for the other tag. It's a Tim Holtz stamp set called Bird Feathers. And I'm going to use the nest stamp that I really liked, but I didn't get to use onto the other tag. And I'm going to stamp it onto the lighter part of the tag. And what you may notice now with the close-up is that I've created a fake lifting technique using only my black ink. Then you see me add some stamps to try to replicate the technique, but as I said before, I feel like this time I couldn't get it right. There might be two reasons for that. I think one is that maybe my black ink pad was too dry and I couldn't stamp properly. And you'll see after I've replaced my ink that the technique looks better. I also think that I wasn't generous enough with my oxide spray. I may have added some too much water and maybe I dried the oxide too quickly, so it wasn't as saturated as it needed to be. So my advice is, if you want to try this technique yourself, be generous with your oxide spray. Don't worry about putting too much. Don't worry about having overly saturated areas, because I feel like the technique truly works if you have those areas where the oxide has really created a thick patina all over your background. This is a close-up of how my background looks. You saw me stamp the nest again, and then I stamped a little bird cage with a Stamperia stamp. I also used it on the other tag, and I feel like that's the area where you can really see the technique. I also added some more of the walnut stain. I was really trying to get my background right, but in the end, I think it didn't work as well as it should have. Now let's move on to decorating my tag. I got out some scrapbooking paper. It's a neutral background that pairs well with the colors of my tag, and I'm gluing it down with my glue tape onto a piece of white cardstock because I'm going to make a frame out of it and I want it to be sturdy. After I've glued it down, I'm going to cut out the white parts. and then cut the excess off so it can fit onto my tag. I've cut out the frame, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rough up the edges with my scissors. I'm going to do it both on the inside and on the outside. And then I'm going to give my frame a rub of black ink on the edges. I gave a running stitch all over my frame. Because I think my frame looks too plain, I will start decorating it by using some stamps. And I'm just randomly stamping all around my frame. And now we'll add some pieces of scrap paper or ephemera to my frame because I want it to look grungy and give it some interest. And I'm going to give a rub of black ink to all of them. I also decided to grab some leftover thread and a little label with a red accent. And I'm going to staple it on my frame. As a final touch, I added some washi tape. Lastly, to give my frame a grungier and more vintage look, I splattered some of the walnut stain using the nozzle. A little close-up of the frame where you can see all the little details. Now I'm going to create the eye catcher of the tag, and I went back to my bird feathers stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that little bird on a piece of white cardstock. Because I don't like the white background, I got out my acrylic paint and I'm going to quickly paint the bird. Once the paint has dried up, I'm going to fussy cut my bird. Here's a little up close. And I'm going to give the bird a rub of black ink as well. I want my tag to have a layered look, so I will be using some pieces of cardboard to raise everything, and I'm starting out by adding 2 little pieces to the bird. Now I'll glue it down to the frame. And then I'm also adding some strips of cardboard to all the 4 sides of the frame. I want my frame to look a little bit like a window, so I'm going to cut out some acetate and glue it down to the frame. While I was waiting for the glue to dry on the acetate, I decided to go back to my background. Unfortunately, my camera stopped recording and I couldn't catch footage of that, but as you can see, I just added some stamped images to my background and I used some white ink. Now that the glue is dry, I will be adding another layer of cardboard on top of the acetate. Of course, always on all the 4 sides. I went back to my tag and decided to add some splatters using the nozzle of the Oxide spray. Then I added some water and dried everything up. And this is how the background looks once it's dry. It's time to put everything together, and I'm starting with this piece of ephemera that looks like a little ticket. I'm roughing up the edges and adding some ink. And I will be sticking it down in the area where I want my frame to be. I wanted to create an interest point behind my frame as well, and despite the little bird cage being my favorite area of the tag, I decided that it would have been better if I covered it up. So I took out a piece of black cardstock, I stamped the image with some white ink, I cut it up, and I'm adding some little pieces of cardboard to raise it. Now I'm gluing it down to my tag, making sure it is in frame. Now I'm cutting up a little leaf from this sticker sheet, and I will be sticking it down behind my bird on top of the acetate. I was looking for a very thin washi tape, but I didn't have anything to my liking in my stash, so I took out this piece of scrapbooking paper and I ripped out a little strip with some writing on it, inking it, and I will be placing it underneath that little postal card stamped image. Now I'm adding that little leftover piece from my strip to the frame. I took out another label looking piece of ephemera and I will be gluing it down behind my bird, but this time behind the acetate sheet as well. And this is a very fun way of creating a layered look without using anything to raise the elements. And I'm doing something similar with the flower and the leaf as well. The flower is glued on top of the acetate, while the leaf will be glued behind the acetate. And as you can see on this close-up, it's really evident that the two elements are on different levels. I love using this technique, and it's something that I've learned while doing my Preserve Through Time series, my infamous specimen slash slide card series. And now you just saw me cut out a little bird from another piece of scrapbooking paper. I thought the bird paired well with the other one, and I will be using it as a further point of interest on top of my tag. I think by now you're probably tired of seeing me trying to fix the background and make it look decent, but I finally decided to add a finishing touch. I really wanted the nest to be part of my tag, so I stamped the center of it with the white ink, and I think that it ends up looking better than with the fake lifting technique. While I was rambling about my background, you saw me add a little die-cut branch behind my bird cage and also one near the beak of my main bird and another one behind the red flower. I felt like the area where the second bird was a bit empty, so I took out this washi tape and I'm just sticking it down on the edge. I think I'm satisfied with the decoration of my tag, so it's finally time to stick down the frame. It's finally time to add the last finishing touch to my tag by adding a fabric tab. I took out this ribbon which has some flowers with a red center on it that I think pairs well with the red accents that are present all over my tag. And I just cut out two pieces and I will be stapling them down. We're finally done with our tag. Here is a little close-up. You can see all the details, the different levels. And despite the hardships, I can say that I'm truly satisfied with how my tag looks. Here is the other tag I made with the same technique which this video was focused on. This one is a bit different, still his bird themed, but it's more gothic. And that is the bird cage, the same one we used for this one. And you can see the technique looks very well on this one because I was definitely more generous with my Distress Oxide spray. We've come to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe to my channel. And also, if you want, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Bye!